Frasier is already back. It's season 2 on Paramount Plus of the reboot, and they dropped 2 episodes at once. It's going to be weekly from there, but let's talk about the first 2 episodes of season 2 of the new Frasier. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my review for the new Frasier season, at least the first 2 episodes so far. And this is streaming now on Paramount Plus. They're going to roll these out like they did with the first season, week by week. But also, as they did the first season, the first 2 episodes dropping at once to really, give us kind of a taste here of what to expect. And so, yeah, if you are a frequenter of my channel, maybe you know that I did the Frasier reviews episode by episode for last season, and that is in a playlist on the homepage, so you can check those out as well. And also, the original, the old Frasier, the gang on my shirt here, I did season by season reviews with my old buddy Joe of that. That was years ago before there was even a reboot to talk about. I'm just a huge Frasier fan. So, look, the episode by episode reviews did well for the channel for season 1, so I figured let's do it again. I'm going to be watching them anyway, so why not, talk about it with you guys and give a little review. So if you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much. If you are not, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell as well. I plan on doing new Frasier reviews every Thursday or Friday. The new episodes are going to drop Thursdays, so if I get to it Thursday, great. If not, then by Friday morning or afternoon, I will get those up for you. But like this video, and most importantly, comment below, because I love interacting with the other Frasier fans out there. And certainly a lot of you were vocal last season about what you liked about the season, what you didn't like about the season, and I love it. I love to hear that. Some agreed with me, some didn't agree with me, and I like that too. I love the dialogue. So, all right, so we have, like I said, these first 2 episodes dropped. Number 1 is Ham, and number 2 is Cyrano. The first episode, directed by James Burrows, and of course, Jimmy Burrows, is, I think, the most prolific director of all time for television sitcoms. I mean, he dates back to the 70s, but he directed a lot of the Cheers episodes, a lot of the original Frasier episodes, every episode of Will and Grace. He's directed some Friends. So, he really gets around. And he directed, I think, 2 episodes in the first season of the reboot as well. This episode 2, directed by Kelsey Grammer. He directed, I think, 4 of the 10 episodes from season 1. Obviously, that is something that's probably part of his contract. He enjoys the directing side of things as well, and so, okay, let's put him behind the lens too. Look, he's a good sitcom director. He directed a few episodes of the original Frasier as well. And I don't know if he's done really anything in between that, but he directs the second episode here. And both these episodes were written by Joe Cristalli and Chris Harris. And Joe Cristalli solo wrote one of the episodes from last season, but the pair wrote the pilot for the first season, which, for my money, was the worst episode of the season. But I think that is because they didn't quite know what the characters were going to be yet. They were still sort of forming them and shaping them. I wonder if I went back now and watched that, if that would be a little bit better than I thought. I think my original grade was like a C+, whereas the season on the whole, I think, was a B+, something like that, because I think once we got past a couple of stumbling blocks, those first couple episodes, really got to know the characters, the show was a lot more enjoyable. And here, look, even though it's the same pair that wrote that terrible first episode, I think we understand the characters a lot better now, and so did they. And so we had some laughter there. So I guess we'll just sort of go episode by episode and talk about them, and then at the end, maybe I'll grade them both. But everyone returns from the main cast. Of course, you have Kelsey Grammer as Frasier. You have Jack Cutmore Scott as Freddie, his son. Tokes Olagondoy as Professor Olivia. Nicholas Lyndhurst as Professor Alan Cornwall. Clearly, the comedic foil to Frasier. They're old friends, but the two of them as a pair is always a winner. Although they've teamed him up pretty successfully in season 1 with Anders Keith as well, who plays David Crane, Frasier's nephew, and of course Freddie's cousin. And then you have Jess Salguero as Eve, who is Freddie's friend, the bartender at Mahoney's, the local bar that they visit, and of course, in name, a tribute to John Mahoney, who was the dad on the original Frasier. All right, so episode 1, Ham. This is about Ham Day, and we learn what the heck is Ham Day. It is a very special day of the year, celebrated by Frasier and Alan. And we learn sort of the history of that as we go. But in the beginning of the episode, we learn that Alan sort of shaped, for better or worse, Freddie's entire life by prompting him to drop out of college. And I will say, if you are new to my Frasier reviews, I do go pretty in detail with the plot. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want spoilers, maybe watch those episodes first before you come back, because I will be talking about, specific plot points and stuff. But anyway, so we also learned that he's been doling out advice all over town over the last few years. We had what's his name? Fred. Wait, who's the worst character? Anders Holm. David Crane or Anders Keith. Sorry, David. Yeah. So David also got some advice from Alan. And at first they don't necessarily say, who it was. But since the same advice came both to David and to Freddie, which was indubitably, and that led Frasier to make the realization that, oh my God, you're the one who convinced my son to drop out of college and become a firefighter. And it's funny because, they had to walk this line a little bit last year because being a firefighter obviously is, I mean, my God, what bravery, one of the most, noble things you could do, noble professions. And at first, in like the beginning, maybe of the first season, Frasier kind of was seeming to look down on that lifestyle. And obviously that's not, I think, what they want to portray here, because clearly firefighters are heroes. So they've sort of twisted that into, Frasier kind of being a little bit, not beside himself, but a little bit torn on it, because obviously he sees this, intelligent potential of Freddie into more, why aren't you doing something more academic or whatever? Whereas, he realizes that being a firefighter is heroic. So he had like a little back and forth with himself that I thought was pretty funny with Freddie, about that. How could you drop out of college to be a firefighter, which is such a noble profession, and that kind of thing. And that was very funny. But then we learned later on that Alan gave Olivia some advice as well about a relationship. And as the episode goes, we realize that the advice came from a magic 8-ball type of thing called the magic snooker ball, which obviously is a British type of thing, which is kind of funny in itself, just that concept of the snooker ball. So I like that. But as we're shaking it, we realize that he's just giving the answers from that. Including calling Olivia "you bloody loon." That was one of them. And then, of course, Frasier is trying it himself. Does Frasier Crane still have it? And, he gets a comical result there. So that obviously creates a huge rift between the two of them, even more than they already had. And meanwhile, you've got Jess, or what's her name? Jess Saliguero plays Eve. So you have Eve and David sort of caring for the ham. They go pick up the ham at the the post office, or whatever store it got shipped from. And there's like specific instructions for this thing, and they just mess it up to the T. And this episode, really, okay, both of these episodes, to dabble a little bit in episode 2, both of these episodes play to the major strengths of the original 90s Frasier. And that is, the misunderstanding of something, and that factors into episode 2, and physical comedy, and that is episode 1. And we saw a little bit of the physical comedy last year with David and his character. But here, I don't think they ever played it up quite this much yet with the David character. I mean, everything goes awry with this ham that could. First they start eating it a little bit, and obviously that's not physical comedy, but it's kind of funny, because they don't they're not supposed to be touching it obviously until everyone is there, but they're eating, and so they're like, oh, okay, now we got to figure out a way to sort of make this so it has not been eaten. And that's an old sitcom trope, usually with a cake or something. So, all right, that's fine. I'll allow it. But Eve goes across the hall to her place to get some herbs, maybe to kind of, spice it in a little bit. And meanwhile, David drops the ham in a cake, and then eventually he gets it in the garbage disposal somehow, and starts it up, and so there's a lot of him sort of dropping the ham, and look, I believe even Frasier, the show, has done this in the past with things slipping out of your hands and food specifically, at maybe one of Frasier and Niles' parties, whatever. So I'm not saying that this is brand new, not tread upon ground, even for this series, but it really is one of the hallmarks, I think, of the original Frasier is that physical aspect, physical comedy. David Hyde Pierce was excellent at it, with the Niles character, but they did a few other things along the way as well with some of the other characters. So, loved seeing this part of David because, look, David is certainly from season one the most irritating character. I heard that from you guys over and over in the comments as well, sort of echoing my sentiments that, they need to find something else to do with this guy because he's just right now super annoying. And by the end of the season, by the latter half, I think they did. And I think that is carrying on here because he is very, very funny in that scene. And then by the end, we have everybody sort of gathering at the house. Frasier and Alan race each other there to essentially split the ham up because they are done with Ham Day. Frasier has canceled it because of his anger. And so, it comes out at that point that those pieces of advice from Alan were from the Magic 8 Ball, and everyone's, real shocked about that. But, leave it to Freddie, sort of the, I don't know, moral center of the show, but, certainly kind of the voice of reason. I think we've seen that a lot in the last season as well. And also there is a funny scene, I didn't mention this, with some cute kids from the Scouts that come to the firehouse, and Freddie's kind of, giving them, a little talk about what it means to be a firefighter and everything. And one of the kids asked, did you always want to be a firefighter? And he said, actually, no, this is kind of funny. We were just kind of discussing this. I originally went to, college and this and that. And they kind of get on him for like, wait, you dropped out of college and you consulted somebody else instead of your dad? Like, what were you thinking, kind of thing? And look, I'm a little hit or miss on kids because sometimes they have them say really sort of pithy things that they would never say. But certainly to move the plot forward and for some humor, I enjoyed that scene as well. And that sort of adds into the end scene where Freddie's like, look, Dad, maybe I shouldn't have gone, behind your back to ask about dropping out of college and this and that and the other thing. Maybe I should have consulted with you. And so they kind of talk that out. But he is the voice of reason and says, look, you guys are old friends for decades. Why don't you tell us the story of Ham Day? And so they start to tell, a very, very short version. And he's like, no, there's more to it than that. Let's hear it. And that kind of gets them back in each other's good graces. And they decide, okay, let's have Ham Day. Whereas at this point, Freddie's like, or not Freddie, David. But meanwhile, Eve brought in some like Black Forest deli ham that she had, and sort of made it up for the guys to pretend like it was the real ham. And of course, they sort of realize that the taste is a bit off. But all right, so that's episode 1. Let's move here to episode 2, Cyrano. I think I've talked kind of about the positives and negatives there. And okay, so this is a Valentine's episode. And I mentioned this last year when we had the Christmas episode, because I said that a lot of holiday episodes, specifically Christmas themed episodes, I guess, because that's what we usually get with sitcoms, have sort of fallen by the wayside with the advent of streaming shows, because a lot of shows don't go on a year-round clock anymore. And even the Frasier Reboot is only 10 episodes every season, as opposed to, the old 22, 24 sometimes maybe even 26 episodes of a show. Because the show would run year round. You'd have, 24 or 26 episodes, and then you reran those episodes again, and that made for the whole year. So now we're only getting 10 episodes, and, they're usually dumped at the same time if they're on Netflix or Hulu. There's a lot of, well, Hulu depends. Sometimes they do the week by week as well. But actually, well, yeah, it depends on the show, I guess. But I personally enjoy a week by week model better, because I don't have time usually to just watch 10 full hour episodes or whatever it is at once. So I like the week by week model, but that results in us not necessarily having a lot of holiday episodes anymore. And so here we ended season 1 on a Christmas episode. I believe season 2 is also going to end on a Christmas episode because it's called Father Christmas. We have the titles for all these episodes so far for the season. So, all right. So we're going to get another Christmas episode this year, but we also get a Valentine's episode, which is kind of odd because this is episode 2, Valentine's. And so if episode 10 is Christmas, then I guess we are to assume that the whole year really, is going to be maybe, one episode for each month or something similar to that, 10 episodes, 12 months. So something close. But this was a Valentine's episode, Cyrano, and again, directed by Kelsey Grammer, written by the same duo that wrote episode 1. And again, I can't think of too many holiday episodes. The Bear had a Thanksgiving episode, but other than that, streaming wise, I don't know. So it's nice to kind of have those moments. I will say off the top, we get a great guest star here in this episode. It's not someone from the Frasier family, but it is someone who has worked with Kelsey Grammer before, Patricia Heaton. They did a show together on Fox called Back to You in the mid-2000s. I think it was maybe a year or two after Frasier and Everybody Loves Raymond both ended. I think Ty Burrell was on it as well, if I'm remembering that correctly. And of course, that was before he got the Modern Family gig. It was a pretty funny show, but it only lasted one season. But, the two of them are old friends. And in Hollywood, they're kind of a rarity because they both are right-leaning. So, they probably have that to talk about as well. But in any event, it was great to see her. She's rocking some gray hair now, which I think she looks pretty good with, to be completely honest. But the theme of the episode is, as I mentioned earlier, all about sort of miscommunication, people hearing one thing and thinking another. And so specifically, Frasier thinks that Olivia is going to fire Alan. Because he's always been sort of a lackluster teacher, at least, since he's gotten tenure. We really covered that in season 1 to some good comedic effect. But here, he's like really, really slacking and does not want to do the work. And so Olivia makes some comments, about, there's something I need to take care of, somebody I need to, kind of be honest with, and put an end to a certain relationship. But she means this guy Moose from the firehouse that she's been sort of dating on the sly. We discovered that at the end of season 1. And so, all right, they've been sneaking around a little bit. It's established in this episode they've had maybe a few dates, but Moose does not know how to talk to her at all. He is sort of the typical kind of jock that maybe did not do very well academically, kind of a big moose of a guy, and that's where he got his nickname, I guess. I think they told us where specifically he got his nickname in season 1, but in any event, so Frasier thinks Olivia is wanting to fire Alan, but it turns out no, she really just wants to not necessarily do a Valentine's thing with Moose, doesn't know where the relationship is going. So Frasier, to the rescue, he takes over, texting her from Moose's phone, doing Shakespeare quotes and stuff, and then he goes to Olivia to talk about, hey, don't fire Alan, and then she starts texting him back while he's in the room as Moose. And so that's a little bit of not necessarily physical comedy, but definitely sort of farce, if you will, but definitely, keying off that miscommunication stuff. So he actually ends up going on the date with them because he has charmed Olivia with his, Shakespeare quotes as Moose. And so she agrees to see the date through. But then Moose is like, yo, bro, I can't talk to her. I can't keep this up. You got to come with me and, maybe be at a different table. And the only reason he even got the date was because Frasier had a date planned. she ended up canceling. And I'll get into that. But anyway, so he goes on the date, and then Olivia spots him there and says, "Oh my God, thank goodness you're here. I need you to kind of cover for me and, give me stuff to talk about with Moose. We have really nothing in common, da 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 da." So that becomes also farcical physical comedy, with him kind of peering, back and forth between the fern and then going to the bar and talking to the Patricia Heaton character about, sports teams and stuff that he can have Olivia say. So that's very funny. But at the end, I think they realize, hey, we maybe don't really have enough in common. Maybe we shouldn't continue our relationship. But hey, we're here. Let's have this good dinner. And in the meantime, Frasier gets word that his date actually, can make it after all. So he kind of shoos them away so he can have the table. That ends disastrously, as well as we realize that she has 8 kids, but the kids are all snakes. That's what she calls her, snakes. And so he's like, oh, I gotta, step out, gets a call from his fake aunt that we learn about earlier in the episode that is Eve's excuse to get out. So everybody else, is trying to find love for Valentine's Day, etc., and it's not really working out. So Frasier had this date planned. She canceled. They're all like, yo, she canceled on Valentine's Day with some weak excuse. This isn't real. She's just not interested. And that puts Frasier on this kind of journey of like, why are we so quick to dismiss the possibility of love? The smallest quirk just sends us away from the idea of being with a person. And so that's kind of what puts the wind in his sails about helping Moose in the first place. Not even knowing that Olivia is on the other end, but just like, hey, we got to give love a chance kind of thing. Meanwhile, Freddie ends up with no date as well, so he helps tend bar with Eve, and that leads to some pretty funny stuff. Cutmore Scott is, a fairly new actor to me. I maybe have seen him in a few things before Frasier, but he does a bunch of different accents here, trying different bartender personas, and I thought that was pretty funny. So overall, I think these are both pretty good episodes, and I think they really are, like I've been saying, playing to the strengths of the original Frasier show, which is, the miscommunication, the physical comedy, and the farce as well. And I think we were experimenting with that a little bit with some of the later episodes of Cheers. Woody's wedding, is a great example of that. And so they sort of took that concept and put it into, I think, some of the best episodes of the original Frasier show, like the Ski Lodge and all of that. So love that we had some physical comedy in these episodes, some farce in episode 2, and definitely some of that miscommunication as well. So both these episodes, I think, we've gotten a solid start here. I would say, boy, I don't know which one is even better. I mean, they're both sort of in that like A minus B plus kind of a range. But let's see, is there a better episode than the other? There probably, right? You know what? I'm gonna give episode 2 a little bit of a nudge, because I think it probably was a little funnier, and I think it incorporated sort of all of those hallmarks of the Frasier brand, whereas episode 1, we certainly had the physical comedy with David, but some of the other stuff, maybe not so much. But I think some good, family stuff between Frasier and Freddie as well. So, yeah, I will leave the first episode, Ham, with a B+, and let's put Cyrano with an A-. And you can check out those episodes now on Paramount Plus, and we will get to week-by-week episodes until we have the full 10-episode season. And pretty interesting that this came back even earlier than a year, because the last season, I think, debuted in November, right? Or maybe late October or something, but it wasn't this early. I applaud any show and any showrunner that has a season-by-season schedule, every year for these streaming shows. Only Murders in the Building, The Bear, there's a few, but then you have like Wednesday on Netflix waiting, 4 years between seasons. Guys, people are going to not care by then. So I'm very, very happy that the writers and producers and everybody got on board to bring us a new season of Frasier so quickly. I really do applaud that. So, all right, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment below on your thoughts on these episodes, and we look forward to next week as well, which is called All About Eve, and it is apparently also directed by James Burrows. So we have another Jimmy Burrows episode in the can here, and I guess it will focus on the character of Eve. So, all right, we will see you then. Thank you for watching, and bye.